Nostalgia is pleasant but potent. Though it brings feelings of joy and remembrance for the good old days, it's also a reminder that time has gone by quicker than we expected, and the things that we used to love are nothing but in the past now. But that's okay, you know? Being born in 2003, I was present for most of the 2000s, and now that it's 2023, and those years are nothing but memories, I've begun to try to come to terms with the fact that time is always moving forward. It's out of our control, but it's what we have to deal with living in this world. As time goes on, we start getting older, and things change quicker than we expect. Being born in 2003, it's kind of hard to believe I'm going to be turning 20 years old this year. I have a lot of fond memories in my life, but it's taking some time for me to realize I don't remember everything that happened to me when I was growing up. It's a painful thing, but growing up is one of the most painful experiences I think every human goes through. We develop relationships, form bonds, and create memories when we're younger that eventually dissolve over time as we get older. And we start to forget about some of those things over time. This has become very evident for me personally. When I was younger, I would go to California every summer with my parents and sister to visit our family. My cousin and I were really close friends, and we used to stay up late in our grandparents' living room, playing video games, eating food, and laughing about random things that happened during the school year. It was some of the best memories I had as a kid, and I miss my relationship with my cousin. We haven't really talked much in the last few years, and honestly it makes me kinda sad. We don't really know each other much anymore, but I'll always cherish the memories with him, even though I don't remember as many of them anymore. One of the best memories with him is when we played the game SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom for the original Xbox. We didn't play it a ton, but the times we did play it I remember vividly. I loved SpongeBob more than any other cartoon as a kid, so it was something that was refreshing for me to play. I didn't have a video game console until I was a little bit older, being the Nintendo Wii. Actually, that's a lie. I did have an original Xbox, but was too young to appreciate it, and we got rid of it before we really knew what we had. Rough. Anyways, playing that game with my cousin gives me a lot of nostalgia when I think about it, and the game always held a special place in my heart, especially as I got older and lost the opportunity to play it again sooner rather than later. I honestly don't think I have played the original game since at least 2010, but not only was it special for me, but plenty of others too, even gaining a ton of popularity within the speedrunning community. It was uncommon for a licensed video game to be as high quality as Battle for Bikini Bottom was, but the game stood out and even got a ton of praise. It actually became a PlayStation and Xbox classic. Plenty of SpongeBob games released between the original and the remake, 34 to be exact, including this one. Some of them are actually pretty good, and I even remember playing some of them like Truth or Square, or all the Nicktoons games. No SpongeBob games would make a prominent appearance from 2015 until the release of Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated in 2020, which is also the first game since creator Steven Hillenburg's death in 2018. Battle for Bikini Bottom always stood out and was regarded as easily the best SpongeBob video game, but in 2018 when they announced the remaster of the game, Heavy Iron Studios, who developed the original game with THQ Publishing, would give the task to Purple Lamp Studios to develop this time around, and the game being published by THQ Nordic. The game would be made with the Unreal Engine 4 and was expected to have a massive upgrade in terms of graphics. I was ecstatic. I always planned on playing the game when it was released, but for whatever reason I never got to it. And here we are, nearly 4 years later, after the announcement of the game, and I'm making a retrospective of it. I want to talk about the game and the things it got right, the remaking of it, and the things that they got, I also want to talk about nostalgia and how it felt for me to play this game when I hadn't for such a long time. This game means more to me than I realized, and when I finally finished it, I knew I had to make a video for it. It's the first video game I'm making a video on, so I've spent a lot of time with this game, and I've come to love it more than I anticipated at the start. So, get comfortable, grab a snack, and maybe a nice refreshing drink, and get ready to hear me ramble. I'm Drakey Berg, and this is SpongeBob SquarePants, Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated, a pleasant nostalgia trip. To give a bit of background, THQ Nordic came out and said they'd be making several more Nickelodeon games with several different IPs. That included Jimmy Neutron, Fairly Odd Parents, SpongeBob SquarePants, and plenty of others. The first game from Nickelodeon out of this was the remake of Battle for Bikini Bottom. This shocked a lot of people, but everyone was open and excited for it. The game had gained a cult following over the years and had become very popular in the speedrunning community, its main source of preservation. It's uncommon for a licensed game to get a remake, but if any was to get one, it would be this one. Rehydrated would release on Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, Windows, and Xbox One on June 23, 2020. The game wasn't anything brand new, still reusing archival recordings from the original game, including a bit of new recordings. This would mean that Mr. Krabs and Mermaid Man still sound like this.
You helped me get rid of that no-good robot! I'll give you a big reward. Actually, it's a good thing you showed up, young sponge of goodness.
All of the music would be the same too, which is a blessing. The game was in development from 2018 until halfway through 2020. The game also released limited editions on all platforms, the Shiny Edition and the Fun Edition. I got neither of those. And from what I heard, they're pretty expensive too, so I don't think I'll be scrounging for them on eBay or anything. I'm curious, I wonder what the price is on eBay for them.
Flappin' Flotsam, what's that?
Anyway, I didn't get my hands on the game until Christmas 2020. I always intended on playing the game earlier, but for whatever reason I never did. I planned on always playing it on the Switch, waiting to get it in physical form for the console, but no. This past Christmas then rolled around and I was given a PlayStation 5 that day. I was super excited, and when I got on there, one of the first games I found on the PlayStation Store was Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. The game had a deal, and I thought it would be the best time to finally get it. I turned on the game and was excited to play, and as the screen loaded up and my anticipation started to reach its peak, I finally heard the words.
Are you ready, kids?
Dropping no motherfucking B-roll. I was just praying to the window. Niggas in love with the flow. Niggas in love with the flow.
I instantly noticed the graphics and how much more polished it is compared to the original. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the original because I feel like it has a ton of charm, but these new graphics are great as well. The music is just as I remember it and just as great as ever, as I previously mentioned. The plot for the game is pretty simple. In typical SpongeBob fashion, Plankton develops a scheme to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. This time he decides to develop robots within the chum bucket to try and take it from Mr. Krabs and take over all of Bikini Bottom in the process. But while doing so, Plankton forgets to turn on the obey switch, and the robots begin to do the opposite of what he wants them to do. Starting to take over all of Bikini Bottom, including Plankton and the chum bucket. All of these robots, now roaming Bikini Bottom, trying to take control, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy have to work together to stop them. We start at SpongeBob's house where the robots leave a pretty bloody message on the wall, and we begin our journey. From the start, we learn that we have to collect golden spatulas in order to continue in the game, citing it as our most important collectible to enter into new areas. Other collectibles will make appearances as well, like Patrick's socks and the shiny objects, both helping us get more golden spatulas down the line. Once we collect enough golden spatulas, it's time to leave SpongeBob's house. We're shown the typical neighborhood with Squidward's house and Patrick's house to the left. Tiki sit around waiting for us to break them, as robots also roam. We start off by playing as SpongeBob, who starts with some abilities and gains some throughout the game as well. It's easier for me to just name all his abilities now, so here they are. The Bubble Bowl, the Cruise Bubble, the Sneak ability, the Bungee, and the Bubble Bash. And for me, I began collecting some of the socks around the houses before going into the first level, Jellyfish Fields. I enjoyed Jellyfish Fields, and King Jellyfish as the first boss we were introduced to is actually quite a fun callback to the show. I had a lot of fun time in this level, but one gripe I have with it is that the enemies feel too easy to kill, if that makes any sense. Actually, they kind of feel too easy to kill throughout the whole game. There are some robots that are harder to beat, but, you know. Patrick also becomes playable during this level. His abilities include carrying and throwing heavy objects like a watermelon, and body slamming, primarily. I think that seeing the Jellyfish Field so lush and green was very nice, and as you continue to play, you realize through almost every level, Mr. Krabs, Mrs. Puff, or some other characters are going to appear to give you missions for spatulas as well. Typically, it's Mr. Krabs and Mrs. Puff. You might get Squidward sometimes and others, but those two are the most prominent. Then I made my way towards Inner City Bikini Bottom, where Mrs. Puff asked me to find all the steering wheels and their location, hinting at a golden spatula as a reward. We run into a few more missions until we are introduced to Sandy as one of the playable characters. Sandy's able to swing around on signs that look like Texas. She's also able to use her lasso and karate ability to fight enemies. She can also use the lasso to rope things in like Tiki's. Sandy's easily the most overpowered character in the game and my favorite to play as. Every time she's playable, the game is so much easier and more fun to play. Sometimes enemies can get repetitive, but Sandy can kick their ass almost instantly. As you go through the game, you realize some of the missions can't be completed until later in the game. For example, SpongeBob's bubble missile is needed in Inner City Bikini Bottom, but we don't unlock it until later, enticing us to come back once we do. After doing all that I could in Inner City Bikini Bottom, I arrived at Goo Lagoon. While there, I ran into Mrs. Puff and Mr. Krabs, who give us more things to do. We play as SpongeBob and Patrick in this level. We go from the beach into a cave, to the carnival, and then to another beach. Larry is also the first person that we see when we get there, and he gives us our first mission. After I finished Goo Lagoon, I arrived at the big first boss battle. The Poseidon brings Robot Sandy into the fray. Patrick says one of the funniest lines of the game,
It's a giraffe!
and then he and SpongeBob kick the robot's ass. By the end of the battle, SpongeBob gets a new power, the Bubble Bowl. I unlock the next part of Bikini Bottom and enter Sandy's treehouse where I fight robots with SpongeBob needing water, and then Sandy giving him a golden spatula when completed. I love those little details like Patrick watching from outside the dome, SpongeBob's face when he's dehydrated, etc. I honestly just love all the references in this game. I then went to the police station where we can look at all different types of robots and plankton, and then off to Shady Shoals where we run into Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. And again, Mermaid Man and Mr. Krabs' voices are really off. It reminds me of the old game, so it gives a bit of nostalgia I guess, but I think I would have preferred their normal voices. I know Mermaid Man's voice actor passed away, so I guess like I still prefer this voice, but I don't know. I mean, it's a whatever. I'm going off track. Sorry. Excuse me, where was I? The puzzles in the Mermalair sort of suck by the way too, especially the ball puzzle, which was actually kind of easy when I completed it later in the game, but I was avoiding it the whole time, so maybe I got all the jitters out. There's also a confusing Patrick Laser puzzle that I had to look up on YouTube to figure out, but it wasn't actually as hard as I really thought it was. I was just kind of being a bitch. As I kept playing, I realized SpongeBob and Patrick are definitely the main protagonists of this game, with Sandy also being a main character, but not as heavily. Patrick and SpongeBob are the ones playable in the Mermalair. Prawn is then the next boss at the end of the Mermalair level, and once we beat him, it's off to Rock Bottom, where we get to play as SpongeBob and Sandy this level. I feel like Rock Bottom is kind of bland. It had some cool areas like the museum, but it wasn't as lively as I thought it could be. The vending machine reference is great though. When I got through Rock Bottom, it was time for Sand Mountain, where I would race Mrs. Puff's record, Bubble Buddy's record, and then Larry the Lobster's record for individual spatulas. The Patrick bot was next, at the industrial park, and this boss is pretty fun and was nice fighting one of these robot bosses with Sandy. I made quick work of Patrick before destroying the shit out of the Krusty Krab and exploring the very pretty level of SpongeBob's Dream. You enter into all of the main cast beside Plankton's dreams to find hidden treasures as SpongeBob and Sandy. At this point in my playthrough, I broke my game. So I'm not recording the footage on like a video recording. I don't know how well you can see it. Like, I'm gonna try and make this better in editing. But like, I broke the game. Like, I don't know what happened. I was rolling around ball SpongeBob, clicked the trigger, like just in the middle of the road somewhere. Now I'm just like free falling in the middle of like the blue abyss. I don't know where I am. I was able to get out of it pretty easy, but I was so lost. Anyways, when I awoke from the dream, I arrived at Kelp Forest. As I was going through Kelp Forest, I began to realize that it was starting to become my least favorite level of the game. It's quite glitchy in some spots, and you definitely need some direction for some specific things. Not to say that it's a bad level necessarily, but it's the least strong candidate throughout the game. After finding all the campers and doing all the miscellaneous things I needed to do in Kelp Forest, I would then go to Flying Dutchman's graveyard, where I would get enough golden spatulas to then fast travel and fight the final boss. The final boss, taking place in the chum bucket itself, is Robot SpongeBob and Plankton. We fight Robot SpongeBob for a little while, destroying all of his spores with SpongeBob's missiles, until we go into the robot and destroy it from the inside. Once we do that, we beat the main story and get to roll around during the credits. Honestly, it's a pretty simple plot, but if you're a fan of SpongeBob, it feels like a fun, long, normal episode, and I wanted to 100% the game, and I did. Here's my proof. I forgot to mention earlier, but you need to collect 80 lost socks and 100 golden spatulas to beat the game, and man did it take a while. But here I am. It's funny because I actually totally forgot about the Flying Dutchman boss and didn't even complete the cannonball mission to fight him until the end. That was actually the very last thing I did in the game to get the final golden spatula, funny enough. So Robot SpongeBob wasn't even my final boss, it was actually Flying Dutchman. It's kind of a weird ending for me, but you know. Getting 100% gave me a platinum trophy on the PS5 as well as a fun hidden cutscene of the characters singing the theme song at the end. I feel like they could have done more, but whatever, I mean, still fun. And now that my playthrough is complete, I sat and began to reflect on my experience through the game. For being a collectathon 3D platformer, it was nothing too special, but if you're a fan of SpongeBob, it's a great experience, and one that I will always remember fondly, even if I don't pick up the game for a while. Coming from a SpongeBob fan, all of the references, dialogue, and other things throughout the game will make you smile through your journey. So what did I and everyone else think of the game overall? When the game was released, it was met with mixed reception. Companies like IGN and GameSpot giving it lower scores, but the overall audience score was really high and still having a 10 out of 10 on Steam. I kind of invalidate IGN and GameSpot's reviews, honestly. They haven't really been up to par the last few years, so bleh. I find myself watching the reviews sometimes because I'm curious to see what they have to say, but typically I disagree. Everyone's got the right to their opinion though. Anyways though, I wouldn't say it's a 10 out of 10 like those on Steam do. but I think it's pretty close. In terms of a SpongeBob game at least, I think it's probably a 10 out of 10. I enjoyed my experience a ton, and it was a little while since I had actually played through a game entirely. In this process, my life, where things have been changing rapidly, I haven't had much time for video games. But I've started making a little bit more time, and I've had a great time putting my mind elsewhere in these video game worlds. This game was the first of hopefully many that I'll be able to play through again. Not only was it nostalgic and was just like the original game, but it made me feel emotions that I hadn't for a little while. It might just be an average 3D platformer, but it feels like more than that. I don't know. I loved it. Even though not everyone did. The reason I myself don't give it a complete 10 out of 10 is because I feel like they could have added more in comparison to the original game. I tried that new multiplayer mode they added in with my roommate, but it honestly kind of sucks. I was hoping they were going to add another boss or even a level or two in the main game, but it's the same thing. Not that that's a bad thing, it would have just been nice to get more, but that's what Cosmic Shake is for, which we're getting from the 2 million copies sold from this game, might I mention. Success. Anyways, let's wrap it up. In the end, once I finally completed SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated 100%, I felt a whole surge of achievement. I also felt a lot of nostalgia, and the game made me feel things that I hadn't for a while. It took me back to simpler times when I was still close with my cousin, when I was still a kid. I hadn't played through a video game 100% in a really long time, honestly, and like I mentioned earlier, video games weren't really a part of my routine other than the occasional Madden franchise. But when I beat this game, it made me realize that I want to keep doing it. It was the first video game I decided to make a video on, and I'm glad I did. It opened my eyes and helped me realize that I should keep playing video games and keep having fun, and to remember the good old days. This game wasn't remastered just because it's good, but people have fond memories with it. Not only do I have my story with my cousin, but all of you have your stories too. This game, I feel like, is more than a game. This might be a short retrospective on the game itself, but I feel like it deserves more than that. I want to praise it for staying true to itself all this time and standing out in a crowd of so many other licensed games when it easily could have gotten forgotten. But I'm glad it didn't. If you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you'd interact with this channel in any way, whether that would be liking, commenting, or subscribing, that'd be greatly appreciated. As always, I'm Turkeyberg. Have a good night.